Hello and welcome back to 100 Yards of Football, Sports Talk Radio. I'm your producer, Jeremiah Long, and joining me to talk about the LSU Tigers versus the Alabama Crimson Tide is our host, Mr. Vincent Turner. How's it going, man?
Hey, how you doing this morning, sir?
Good,
Great
good.
football game that's going to come up on Saturday night down there in Death Valley in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching our show live or listening to the podcast, we just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. All of your likes and shares and subscriptions to our show help us every single week to grow. So thank you so much. Make sure that you subscribe if you are new to our channel. We've heard that 80% of people that watch the first time haven't subscribed, but we know through our facts and our figures on the back end that most of you go ahead and subscribe after watching our show for 2 or 3 times. And since we put out multiple videos every single week, we just want to know we're here for you. So come back, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. And if you're on the podcast, make sure you subscribe and send us a little note just saying, hey, we're watching the show or listening to the show. So thank you so much. And without further ado, Mr. Vincent Turner, what do we see between the LSU Tigers and the Alabama Crimson Tide this coming week?
When you look at this football game, it's going to be for first place in the SEC West. The game really is a more important game for Alabama because if you lose this game, you added a discussion for the college football playoff. But when you look at it, it's Saturday night, Death Valley. The bourbon is going to be at a high level. The Cajuns are going to be with their crawfish, and they're going to be sipping all day getting ready for this football game. Go back to 1973 when I was 13 years old on Thanksgiving night. You had the Alabama team came in ranked, Wayne Wheeler, a young Sylvester Croom, Gary Rutledge, Woodrow Lowe, and then they played LSU that was trying to become on the mountain. Mike Miley, Brad Davis, they had a freshman by the name of Terry Robisky. Alabama prevailed in that game 21-7 and went on and played Notre Dame for the national championship. When you look at this football game, there's been a lot of questions about the Alabama football program. Are they still the same balanced team? Are they a team that's still at the top of their game? They haven't had no problems offensively because they still got, arguably, some people saying they're still the best football player in the country, Bryce Young. 2 weeks ago, he put up 455 yards. 3 weeks ago against Tennessee, he was the difference maker for Alabama. Then 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State, he had over 349 yards. I don't worry about the Alabama's offense, and they got an outstanding football player, Jahmyr Gibbs. I know Georgia Tech, you sick because you left Georgia Tech and came on to Alabama. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is now in the mix of playing for championships. But the thing that sticks out of my mind, when you look at Alabama, and even though during the time when the offensive game has changed a little bit in Alabama under Nick Saban's tutelage has went from a real running game to a more high passing game under Mr. Tua and Mac Jones and Mr. Jalen Hurts, is defensively. Where is this Alabama team? Think about it. Even though they had a good performance against Mississippi State 2 weeks ago in a 30-6 win, but what Alabama team under Nick Saban, any coach team, when he coached at LSU, when he coached at Michigan State, even in the pros in Miami, did you see the Nick Saban team give up 52 points? And it showed me something now, is that Alabama can be had defensively. And in that football game that people don't bring up, that Tennessee game, and I know LSU is scouting at a high level, they were able to block the best defensive player in the country, in Will Anderson. He only had 3 tackles in that game. And he was a non-factor. Warrior didn't come out to play. To me, that's the biggest question mark coming into Saturday. Where's the Alabama defense going to be at? Now let's look at LSU. I got a lot of respect for Brian Kelly, Jeremiah. Think about this. He left the Notre Dame program that he coached over there for 10 years, got him into a couple of college football playoffs, and for some reason, Notre Dame didn't seem like they respected Brian Kelly. Now I want people to think about this, and you think about this, Jay. When he was looking for a head coaching job, he could have went anywhere in the country. He could have went out there to the Pac-10. He could have went out there to the ACC. There was jobs, but he said he wanted to come to the SEC West, the toughest conference in all of college football. He wanted, as we say, you know what we say here, Jeremiah, he wanted that smoke. And look what he's done. First game didn't turn out. They lost to Florida State. Special teams really cost them a football game. They had a bad game against Tennessee, who's right now number 2 in the country. But since that Tennessee game, and I was thinking in my mind, I said LSU's got a very nice quarterback in Jalen Daniels out of California. California, yeah. And since that time, that young man is combined for 7 touchdowns. He had 349 yards in a win over Florida in the era. Last week against Ole Miss 2 weeks ago, in a 45-20 win, he had 248 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, but he had 3 on the ground. Then think about this. The LSU's got what I call greyhounds at the wide receiver position. Keyshawn Borte has not had a great season, but he's still an NFL draft prospect. Jariah Jenkins is an NFL prospect. Malik Neighbors is an NFL draft prospect. The same type of team at Tennessee proposed problems to the Alabama defense. So it's going to be very, very, very amusing to me on Saturday night. Henry Toto, you say you're an NFL draft prospect. Jordan Battle, you say you're an NFL prospect. DeMarco Humes, you say you're an NFL prospect. Brad Branch, you say you're an NFL prospect. Malachi Moore, you say you're an NFL prospect. Jalen Moody, you say you're an NFL prospect. Well, this is a very good LSU offense that's on fire like the Ohio players. I see this football game being a high-scoring affair, but I'm still going to roll with Roll Tide simply because they got the Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young. And one thing I learned about that young man, another California guy, out of the state of California, he's one of those special players that would not let his team die. It took every effort 3 weeks ago, Hendon Hooker in that Tennessee offense to win that football game. Then last week against Mississippi State, he proved to the Tide Nation, if he's not under the center, Alabama is not going to go nowhere. So I look at this football game, high-scoring affair. I'm looking at Alabama 38, LSU 31. It's going to be going down in the city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And boy, let me tell you something. If you haven't been down there for a Saturday night game, that's a bucket list that I tell anybody has to make. You got to go down there. My sister stays in Sidell, which is a suburb of New Orleans. So I've been to a couple of LSU games, 1 in Baton Rouge and 2 when they played in the Louisiana Superdome. And there's no better fan base than the Louisiana State Tigers. As far as Alabama, you know how I feel about Roll Tide. My final words as I turn it back over to Jeremiah Long. Big wheels keep on turning. Carry me home to see my king. Singing songs about the Southland. I miss Alabama once again. Sweet home, Alabama.
We definitely cannot wait to see it. And you know, speaking exactly to what you're saying, I'd love to go down and see a game at LSU. I know it's got to be an incredible environment down there, one that can't be matched anywhere in the world. And that's that combination of the culture down there, that location, and college football. So yeah, you know, that sounds amazing, and I can't wait to hear that. Well, for all of our viewers, tell us, what do you think will be the final score between LSU and Alabama? Put it in the comments over on YouTube or over on Facebook. And if you are listening to our podcast, first off, thank you so much. But if you're not listening to our podcast, come and join us. Our podcast is also 100 Yards of Football. You can listen to our podcast anywhere that you love to listen to them, including on Spotify, including on Apple Podcast. But if you're on a Google or an Android device, you can listen on Google Podcast, or you can listen on Amazon, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, anywhere that you love to listen to streaming audio. So thank you so much to Mr. Vincent Turner for that insightful recap of what's going to happen this week in the LSU versus Alabama game. We're all looking forward to this incredible matchup and to see where these two teams' fates lie after this very, very incredible and very, very important matchup between these two teams. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Vincent Turner. And I am your producer, Jeremiah Long, and we'll be right back with another live episode. Stay tuned.